Peak: Secrets from the New Science of Expertise by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole. Have you ever watched someone do something so brilliantly, it felt almost supernatural? Picture a musician, fingers dancing across piano keys, weaving through a composition so intricate it seems the music flows from their very soul. Think of an athlete like basketball legend Ray Allen, whose jump shot arcs through the air with such elegant precision that spectators whisper about divine intervention. Or perhaps you've heard tales of the legendary Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, a child barely tall enough to peek over the harpsichord, mesmerizing audiences across Europe at just 7 years old. But here's the thing, it wasn't only his playing that left people speechless. Something else about this prodigy seemed to transcend ordinary explanation. Legend has it that young Mozart possessed an uncanny ability to hear any sound, a violin's note, a clock's chime, even someone's sneeze, and instantly identify it. C-sharp, E-flat, perfect pitch, they called it. This mysterious gift appears in roughly 1 out of every 10,000 people. For generations, this rare ability stood as the ultimate evidence of innate, heaven-sent talent bestowed upon the fortunate few. But here's where things get interesting. What if everything we've believed about talent, genius, and exceptional achievement is fundamentally flawed? For over 3 decades, a remarkable psychological scientist named Anders Ericsson devoted his career to unraveling the mysteries of exceptional humans, the experts, the prodigies, those standing at the absolute summit of human capability. His discoveries reveal a truth so transformative, it has the power to reshape not just how you understand the world, but how you understand yourself. Here's what he found. The real gift wasn't perfect pitch, or that flawless jump shot, or chess mastery. The true gift is something far more extraordinary, and here's the beautiful part. Every single one of us possesses it. Today we're diving into the secrets from his groundbreaking work, captured in the book, Peak. This isn't merely a summary. It's an expedition into the science of expertise. By our journey's end, you'll grasp the fundamental principles separating the merely good from the truly great, and you'll have a practical roadmap to unlock your own remarkable potential in whatever field calls to you. Our journey begins not in an 18th-century European concert hall, but in a modest laboratory at Carnegie Mellon University in the late 1970s. Anders Ericsson, early in his career, designed what seemed like an unremarkably simple experiment. He recruited an ordinary undergraduate named Steve Falloon to visit the lab a few times weekly for a straightforward task, memorizing numbers. That's literally it. Ericsson would read random digits, 1 per second, 7, 4, 0, 1, and Steve would attempt to repeat them back. Day 1, Steve was completely average. Like most humans, he could reliably remember about 7 digits, roughly the length of a local phone number. Push him to 9 or 10 digits, though, and he'd slam into an invisible barrier. After just 4 sessions, Steve was ready to throw in the towel. He confessed to Ericsson, "There appears to be a limit for me, somewhere around 8 or 9 digits. It really doesn't matter what I use. It seems very difficult to get." At the time, the entire field of psychology would have nodded in agreement. It was established scientific fact. The human brain has strict limits on short-term memory capacity. We can juggle about 7 pieces of information simultaneously. Steve, it appeared, had bumped up against his natural hard-wired ceiling. But Ericsson, sparked by curiosity from an obscure, half-forgotten study, encouraged Steve to persist. Then, on the 5th day, something shifted. Steve managed to remember a 10-digit number, then another. Then, for the first time ever, an 11-digit sequence. Just 2 digits beyond his previous best. But it was a crack in what everyone, including Steve himself, believed was an impenetrable wall. That day marked the beginning of one of psychology's most astonishing journeys. Steve didn't plateau at 11 digits. He kept practicing, hour after hour, week after week. Gradually, painstakingly, his capacity expanded. After 60 sessions, he could remember 20 digits. After 100, he reached 40, surpassing any professional memory expert on record. But he kept going. For over 2 years, Steve Falloon sat in that laboratory, listening to numbers. By the end, this completely ordinary college student could hear a random sequence of 82 digits and recite them back flawlessly. Let that sink in for a moment. 82 numbers. That's like memorizing 10 different phone numbers in order after hearing them just once. The feat seemed to defy possibility. Yet Steve achieved it. So what happened? Did Steve suddenly sprout a superhuman brain? Not at all. He accomplished something far more profound. He revealed the first crucial secret of peak performance. He stumbled upon what Ericsson would later term, quote, purposeful practice. Most of us, when learning something new, whether tennis, driving, or baking, follow a predictable trajectory. We receive some instruction, practice until we reach a good enough level, and then we plateau. We put the skill on autopilot. The tennis player competes for 20 years, but never improves beyond their second year. The physician with 30 years of experience might actually perform worse than the doctor 5 years out of medical school, because their skills have quietly deteriorated without deliberate improvement efforts. Ericsson calls this naive practice, mindlessly repeating an activity and hoping improvement magically follows. Steve Falloon took a different path. His practice had purpose. Purposeful practice possesses several defining characteristics. First, it features well-defined, specific goals. Steve's daily objective was beautifully simple. Remember one more digit than yesterday, not some vague aspiration to get better, a clear, measurable target. If you're improving your golf game, your goal can't merely be lower my handicap. Break it into tiny, concrete steps. Today, I'm focusing on keeping my head down through my swing for 10 consecutive shots. You're not just hitting balls, you're targeting something specific. Second, purposeful practice demands focus. Complete attention. When Steve pushed through new barriers, he was utterly absorbed. He'd deliver himself pep talks, pound the table in concentration. He wasn't daydreaming about weekend plans. If your mind wanders, you're not improving. Third, purposeful practice requires feedback. You need to know if you're succeeding or failing. For Steve, feedback was immediate. He either nailed the number sequence or didn't. More importantly, he generated his own feedback. He analyzed why he made mistakes, identified which digits tripped him up, and adjusted his strategy for the next attempt. Without feedback, you're flying blind. You can't fix mistakes you don't recognize. And finally, perhaps most crucially, purposeful practice demands stepping outside your comfort zone. This is the fundamental law of improvement. If you never push beyond your current capabilities, you'll never advance. The amateur pianist, who's played the same dozen songs for 30 years, has accumulated thousands of practice hours, but he's no better than 3 decades ago. He's simply reinforcing what's already comfortable. Steve faced constant challenges. The experiment was designed so every success led to a slightly harder task. He perpetually operated at the edge of his abilities. And that's where growth flourishes, Ericsson discovered. But sometimes, trying harder isn't sufficient. When Steve hit plateaus, points where improvement seemed impossible, he didn't just push harder, he pushed differently. He recognized his old methods weren't working anymore, so he invented new ones. As a long-distance runner, he began grouping numbers into running times. 3:4:92 became 3 minutes, 49.2 seconds, a near world-class mile time. No longer a random string, but something meaningful he could store in long-term memory. He was creating what Ericsson would identify as the cornerstone of all expert performance, a mental representation. Steve demonstrated that with the right practice approach, an ordinary person could achieve extraordinary results. But his story also revealed limitations. When Ericsson and colleague Bill Chase replicated the experiment with another student, Renee, she improved but stalled around 20 digits and never progressed. She practiced equally hard but used a different, less effective memorization method. Hard work alone wasn't enough. Another layer to the secret existed. This is where our story shifts, from laboratory to real world, to fields where performance has been refined across centuries. And it leads us to a seemingly unrelated question. Why should your brain care about London taxi drivers? Few cities rival London's navigational chaos. It's a bewildering labyrinth of twisting streets, one-ways and dead ends. GPS barely manages it. But London cabbies? They're legendary. 25,000 of them can navigate from any point A to any point B with remarkable efficiency, entirely from memory. To become licensed, prospective cabbies must pass exams known simply as the knowledge. It's been called the world's most difficult test. You must memorize approximately 25,000 streets within a 6-mile radius of the city center, plus every park, hospital, theater, museum, and landmark. It requires years of motorbike exploration, route study, and internalizing a mental map of London of almost incomprehensible complexity. In the early 2000s, neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire decided to investigate what this intense training did to their brains. Using MRI scanners, she compared taxi driver brains to others, including London bus drivers who drove identical routes daily but never navigated. Her findings were striking. A specific brain region called the posterior hippocampus, crucial for spatial memory and navigation, was significantly larger in taxi drivers. Moreover, the longer someone had been a cabbie, the larger that brain region. But this raised a chicken-and-egg puzzle. Did they become cabbies because they were born with bigger hippocampi, or did training enlarge that brain region? To answer this, Maguire did something brilliant. She followed aspiring cabbies for 4 years, scanning their brains at training's beginning and end. Initially, no difference existed between their brains and a control group. 4 years later, trainees who'd successfully passed the knowledge and become licensed cabbies had physically grown posterior hippocampi. Those who failed or dropped out showed no change. This was one of the most dramatic demonstrations that the human brain isn't fixed. It's adaptable, it's plastic. Just as lifting weights builds muscle, intense mental training can physically restructure your brain. This incredible adaptability is the deep magic behind human potential. For decades, scientists believed our brains were hardwired from birth. You were either wired for music or not. You had the math brain or didn't. We now know that's false. The brain responds to challenge by rewiring itself. It creates new connections, strengthens existing ones, and in some areas, even grows new neurons. This explains Steve Falloon's amazing memory. It explains London cabbies' navigational genius. And it explains Mozart's perfect pitch. Remember our opening, the assumption that perfect pitch was a rare, innate gift. Well, in 2014, Japanese psychologist Ayako Sakakibara tested that idea. She took 24 ordinary children, ages 2 to 6, through a special training program designed to teach chord identification. After several months of short, daily sessions, every single child developed perfect pitch. 100%. Not 1 in 10,000, all of them. The conclusion is undeniable. Perfect pitch isn't the gift. The capacity to develop perfect pitch is the gift, and it's a gift we're all born with. The real gift is the human brain's incredible adaptability. Mozart wasn't born with magical musical genes. He was born with a brain that, like every child's, was incredibly plastic. And he had a father, Leopold, obsessed with transforming his children into musical prodigies. Leopold began training young Wolfgang before age 4, working with him full-time on keyboard, violin, and composition. The intense early training rewired his young brain, creating circuitry for perfect pitch and other astounding musical abilities. So the power to change, adapt, and develop new abilities is our shared birthright. The question becomes, what's the best way to harness this power? Purposeful practice, as Steve Falloon showed us, is a huge step. But it's not the complete story. Renee, the other student, practiced purposefully, but didn't achieve the same results. London cabbies didn't just drive aimlessly, They followed a structured, centuries-old system for mastering the knowledge. Sakakibara's children didn't just play with pianos. They followed a very specific training regimen. In highly developed fields, classical music, ballet, chess, elite sports, training methods have been refined across generations. They're not just purposeful, they're informed. They're built on deep understanding of what the best performers do and how they got there. This is what Anders Ericsson calls deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is the gold standard. It's the most powerful improvement method ever discovered, separating the world's very best from everyone else. It has characteristics distinguishing it, even from purposeful practice. First, deliberate practice occurs in well-developed fields where the best performers are clearly identifiable and required skills are well understood. Think violin virtuosos or Olympic gymnasts. Established techniques and training methods have been passed down and refined for decades, even centuries. Second, and this is crucial, deliberate practice requires a teacher or coach, someone who already understands expert performance and can provide practice activities designed to get you there. A good coach sees things you can't, provides immediate targeted feedback, and pushes you in ways you wouldn't push yourself. They offer a roadmap tested by generations of previous performers. Deliberate practice, like purposeful practice, means always working just beyond your comfort zone, with intense focus and clear goals. But it's practice that knows its destination and the route to get there. Ericsson and colleagues conducted a landmark study at Berlin's elite music academy. They divided violin students into 3 groups based on their teachers' assessments. The best students destined for international solo careers, the better students headed for professional orchestra positions, and the good students likely to become music teachers. They interviewed everyone, asking about every aspect of their musical lives. When did they start? Who were their teachers? How did they practice? Across the board, all students agreed on one thing. The single most important improvement activity was solitary practice. Not playing for fun, not performing, but being alone in a room, working on specific exercises and challenges their teachers assigned. And they all agreed on something else. It wasn't fun. It was hard, draining work. But when researchers calculated total hours each student devoted to this focused, solitary practice over their lifetime, they found a stunning pattern. By age 18, the good students, future music teachers, had accumulated around 300-400 practice hours on average. The better students averaged 500-300 hours, and the best students, the elite soloists, they averaged 700-400 hours. No exceptions existed. They found no naturals who floated to the top with little effort, and no grinders who practiced obsessively but failed to improve. Time spent in deliberate practice was the single most important factor separating good, better, and best. When they extended the study to professional musicians in 2 world-class Berlin orchestras, they found the same pattern. Practice those professionals accumulated by age 18 was nearly identical to the best academy students. This research led to the famous 10,000-hour rule, popularized by Malcolm Gladwell. While Ericsson acknowledges the rule captures an important truth, becoming an expert takes tremendous time, he clarifies crucial points. First, 10,000 is just an average, a nice round number. Some fields require more, some less. Steve Filloon became world-class at his specific skill in a few hundred hours. An international concert pianist might need 25,000 hours. Second, and most importantly, it's not just any 10,000 hours. It's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Just performing, like the Beatles did in Hamburg, isn't the same as the focused, goal-driven practice violinists did. The true lesson isn't about a magic number. It's about sustained, high-quality practice's immense power. It demonstrates that in any field where people work toward expertise, there's a direct, powerful relationship between deliberate practice amount and performance level. But what exactly happens in the brain during all those practice hours? What are we building? This brings us to the book's single most important concept, mental representations. To understand this, let's explore the seemingly magical world of blindfold chess. A grandmaster like Alexander Alekhine could play dozens of simultaneous games without seeing any boards, tracking every single piece's position mentally. How is this possible? It's not photographic memory. If you show a chess grandmaster a board with randomly arranged pieces in a configuration that would never occur in an actual game, their memory is no better than a beginner's. They can only remember about 3 or 4 pieces. Their incredible memory only functions for patterns that make sense in chess games. What does this reveal? They aren't seeing individual pieces. They're seeing patterns, relationships, lines of force, attack and defense structures. Through thousands of hours studying games played by other masters, they've built a vast library of these patterns in long-term memory. Ericsson's mentor, Herb Simon, estimated grandmasters store about 50,000 of these chunks. When masters look at a board, they don't see 32 pieces. They see a handful of familiar patterns interacting. This is a mental representation. It's a highly complex, sophisticated mental structure, allowing them to process enormous information quickly, bypassing normal short-term memory limits. We all use mental representations daily. When I say dog, you don't consciously recall a fact list. Furry, 4 legs, barks, wags tail. All that information is instantly accessible in a single integrated concept. Your mental representation of a dog. Reading this sentence, you're not sounding out each letter. You're instantly recognizing letter patterns as words, and word patterns as ideas. What sets expert performers apart is their mental representations, quality and quantity, specific to their field. A professional baseball hitter doesn't have faster reflexes than normal people, but they've developed highly sophisticated mental representations of a pitcher's delivery. The moment the ball leaves the pitcher's hand, they recognize subtle arm motion patterns, ball spin, and predict with remarkable accuracy whether it'll be a fastball, curveball, or slider, and where it'll cross the plate. A novice sees a blur. The expert sees clear, predictable patterns. A top surgeon, before making any incision, creates a detailed mental representation of the entire operation, visualizing the patient's unique anatomy and planning for potential complications. If something unexpected occurs during surgery, deviation from this mental map alerts them something's wrong. Deliberate practice is, at its core, developing increasingly effective mental representations. Practicing a violin piece isn't just training your fingers. You're refining your mental representation of how the piece should sound. Pitch, timing, emotion. This internal blueprint guides your fingers and allows you to hear mistakes and correct them. The better your mental representation, the better you practice. And the better you practice, the better your mental representation becomes. It's a virtuous circle. This is the true path to extraordinary achievement. It's not about being born with a gift. It's about taking the gift we all have, our brain's adaptability, and shaping it, step by step, through thousands of hours of focused, guided, deliberate practice, building the powerful mental representations that are expertise's essence. So how can we apply this in our own lives? For many of us, becoming an international concert violinist isn't the goal. We want to improve at our jobs, hobbies, passions. But many professions lack the centuries-old training traditions of music or ballet. This is where we must become our own coaches, applying deliberate practice principles as best we can. Ericsson points to the U.S. Navy's Top Gun school as a fantastic example. In the 1960s, Navy fighter pilots performed poorly in dogfights over Vietnam. Their solution was creating a school where pilots engaged in realistic combat simulations against their own best pilots playing the enemy. The key wasn't just flying, it was the after-action reports. After every simulated dogfight, pilots gathered for relentless debriefs. What did you see? Why did you make that turn? What was your mistake? What could you have done differently? They received constant, immediate feedback. They were pushed beyond comfort zones in safe environments where they could make mistakes, learn, and try again the next day. Results were dramatic. The Navy's kill ratio skyrocketed from 2-to-1 to over 12-to-1. This is the model. Whatever you want to improve, create your own Top Gun-style training. Find ways to practice with focus, get feedback, and make adjustments. Want to be a better public speaker? Don't just give speeches. Record yourself, watch playback, and identify one specific improvement area. Maybe you say too much, or don't make enough eye contact. For your next talk, focus solely on improving that one thing. Then get feedback from a trusted colleague. This transforms performance into practice. This approach requires a fundamental mindset shift. You must reject 3 common myths. The first myth: our abilities are limited by genetics. This book shows we can shape our own potential. The second myth: if you do something long enough, you're bound to improve. As we've seen, this is false. Repetition without goals and feedback leads to stagnation. The third myth: all it takes to improve is effort. Just trying harder isn't enough. You must try differently, with a specific plan designed to improve a specific skill. Even without a formal teacher, you can apply these principles. Benjamin Franklin famously taught himself brilliant writing. He'd read an admired essay from a magazine, jot down hints for each sentence, then days later, try rewriting the essay from his hints. He'd compare his version to the original, identifying weaknesses in vocabulary, structure, and logic. He broke down the skill, focused on specific components, got feedback by comparing his work to a master's, and fixed mistakes. He engaged in deliberate practice, entirely alone. Of course, the journey isn't always easy. One of the biggest challenges is hitting a plateau. That moment when you feel stuck, when practice doesn't seem to lead to improvement. This is where most people quit. But Ericsson offers a way through. When you're on a plateau, usually some specific skill component holds you back. The solution isn't practicing everything harder, but identifying that specific weakness and attacking it. A typist wanting to get faster shouldn't just try typing everything faster. They should intentionally push their speed 10 to 20%, forcing mistakes. This reveals which letter combinations slow them down. Then they can design specific exercises practicing just those combinations. You don't improve by doing what you can already do. You improve by pushing yourself to do what you can't quite do yet, identifying exactly what's breaking down, and focusing all energy on fixing it. The other great challenge, naturally, is motivation. Deliberate practice is hard. It's mentally and physically draining. So how do experts persist for years, even decades? It's not about magical willpower they're born with. It's about building habits and systems supporting their practice. They set aside specific daily time, free from distractions. They understand the importance of rest and sleep for recovery from intense mental effort. But more than that, they find reasons to continue. Initially, motivation might be external: parental praise, desire to win competitions. But over time, it becomes internal. They begin identifying as a, quote, musician, a scientist, a golfer. The skill itself becomes part of their identity, and practice becomes an investment in that identity. They also build social support systems. They surround themselves with others, sharing their passion, understanding the struggle, offering encouragement. Deliberate practice can be a lonely pursuit, but it doesn't have to be a journey you take alone. Ultimately, Anders Ericsson's work gives us more than just a learning method. It's a new philosophy of human potential. For centuries, we've defined ourselves as Homo sapiens, knowing man. We've prided ourselves on knowledge accumulation ability. But perhaps a better name for our species would be Homo exercens, practicing man. The species that, unlike any other, can consciously take control of its own development. The species that can examine its own limitations and, through focused effort, remake itself into something more. The world changes faster than ever. The skills we have today may not be the ones we need tomorrow. In such a world, the ability to learn, adapt, and continuously improve isn't just a path to excellence. It's the key to survival and fulfillment. Peake's message is one of profound hope and empowerment. It tells us the limits we believe we have are, more often than not, self-imposed. It tells us the gift of greatness isn't reserved for a chosen few, but is available to all of us willing to embark on the deliberate practice journey. It gives us tools and confidence to stop accepting our current abilities as our final destination and start building the person we want to become. As we reach the end of our journey through Peak, I find myself reflecting on one central idea that feels truly revolutionary. It's the idea that potential isn't a fixed trait, but an expandable vessel. For so long, we've thought of potential as a cup we're born with. Some people get a large cup, some get a small one. Our job in life, through education and practice, is simply filling that cup as much as we can. But we can never make the cup bigger. What Anders Ericsson shows us, with a lifetime of scientific evidence, is that this metaphor is completely wrong. Through the right kind of practice, we're not just filling the cup, we're actively building a bigger one. We're creating abilities that didn't exist before. The London cabbie's brain physically changed to accommodate a mental map of the city. Steve Falloon's brain developed new pathways to handle an impossible amount of information. They didn't just reach their potential, they built it. This is, I believe, one of the most empowering ideas a person can encounter. It means where you are right now isn't where you have to be. Your current abilities aren't a final verdict on your capacity. They're simply a starting point. The second powerful lesson is the profound difference between being busy and being productive, between simply doing a thing and intentionally practicing it. How many hours do we spend in our lives on autopilot? Driving, working, even in our hobbies, we often go through the motions. We accumulate experience, but we don't accumulate expertise. Peak forces us to ask a hard question. Are we practicing, or are we just playing the same song over and over again? The book serves as a powerful call to intentionality. It asks us to take a more active role in our own growth, to stop being passive consumers of our own lives and become deliberate architects of our skills. So how can you start applying this today? It can feel overwhelming, but the principles are beautifully simple. Here are a few small steps. First, choose one small specific skill you want to improve. Not get better at guitar, but play the G chord transition smoothly without buzzing. Not be a better writer, but write a clear, one-sentence topic statement for each paragraph. Make it tiny. Second, find a way to get feedback. If possible, find a teacher or coach, even for just one session, to give you a roadmap. If not, become your own coach. Record yourself. Compare your work to an expert's. Be ruthlessly honest about where the gap is. Third, dedicate just 15 minutes daily to practicing that one tiny skill with intense focus, pushing yourself slightly beyond what's comfortable. When your mind starts wandering, stop. Quality over quantity. 15 minutes of deliberate practice outweighs an hour of mindless repetition. This book isn't about becoming a world-class genius in 10,000 hours. It's about embracing the improvement process. It's about the quiet satisfaction of doing something today you couldn't do yesterday. It's about taking back control over your own story of what you're capable of. That was a summary of Peak, Secrets from the New Science of Expertise by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole. We've explored the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary can only show you the map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true power of this book is in the quiet reading moments, when a particular story or simple phrase connects with your own life in unexpected ways. This summary is designed to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've discussed has sparked a sense of possibility within you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see your own potential. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.